This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Okay, so there's Donald Trump's reality, and then there's reality. The reality that you can actually see with your own two eyes. The reality you can see in this picture, which clearly shows that the inauguration crowd for Donald Trump on Friday, you can see it there on the left, which Donald Trump claims looks like 1.5 million people to him, was much smaller than President Obama's in 2009, which you can see on the right, which we know was 1.8 million people. Now, do those two pictures look like 1.8 million people versus 1.5 million people to you? Just look at them. Does that look like that to you? Or do they look like 1.8 million people for Barack Obama versus 250,000 people for Trump, which is the estimate based on the exact same metrics that are used for every crowd that gathers on the National Mall for decades, based on the square footage of the mall and how many people fit into the various spaces on it. Just look at those two pictures and tell me what you say. Tell me whether what Donald Trump and Sean Spicer said about those numbers could even remotely be true. And you know what? You don't even need to just trust your eyes. There's also this, numbers. According to the D.C. Metro, as reported by the Washington Post, 570,557 people took trips on the system throughout the entire day on Inauguration Day. Okay. The system saw 1.1 million trips on the same day in 2009. The number of television viewers has also dropped, according to Nielsen, from nearly 38 million in 2009, that was Barack Obama's initial inauguration, to 30.6 million on Friday, a 20% drop, apples to apples. In other words, Mr. Spicer, not the largest number of people who viewed an inaugural, period. Not even close. And if you would lie to our faces about something that is as ultimately trivial as how many people watched your boss's inaugural, how are we supposed to trust you when you walk out on that podium and give some grave and important statement about the nation's national security? How are we supposed to trust anything that you say at all? And joining me now is Scott Dworkin, senior advisor for the Democratic Coalition Against Trump, Sarah Kendzior, journalist and scholar of authoritarian states, Naveed Jamali, former intelligence operative and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy, and Malcolm Nance, MSNBC contributor and author of The Plot to Hack America. Thank you all for being here. And Sarah, when I saw that Sean Spicer truly bizarre press conference yesterday, in which he insisted that it was the largest number of people to ever witness an inauguration, period. He just screamed that into the camera. I immediately thought of you, because I thought to myself, we think this is bizarre in the United States because we've never seen anything like this, but please explain to us how in parts of the world it is actually not bizarre. This is the way it works.
Yeah, this happens all the time in authoritarian states. That's why their rulers, they go through the pretense of having and then they win with some absurd number like 90 to 95% of the vote. And what they're trying to do there is establish powers, to flaunt powers, to say, we know that this is a lie, and we don't care because there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And so, the Trump administration has been doing this from the beginning. But there's one more thing he's doing, which I think is unique to Trump, that you don't necessarily see in other authoritarian states, and that's that he's extremely sensitive about quantitative metrics of popularity. He's obsessed with ratings, he's obsessed with rankings, and that's because he's trying to pull an extremist position into the mainstream. He also came in at a record low popularity for an incoming president. And so it's very important for him to try to pretend he has a mandate, to try to pretend that he's beloved. I think he's very thin-skinned personally, so this affects him personally. He has, very little self-control. So there's sort of two things going on. One is a very typical authoritarian power play, and one is the unique personality traits of Trump and his ceaseless need for admiration.
Yeah, and he's also, I think those are really important points, Sarah, but he's also sending out his people. He's sending out the people that are supposed to be the face of the administration, the trusted voices of the administration, to lie, and to lie with alacrity, and in some cases to lie with venom, right? And something that happened this morning on Meet the Press, and if it hasn't aired in your cities yet, I apologize for the spoiler alert, but this happened on Meet the Press this morning. This is Kellyanne Conway talking to our very own Chuck Todd and saying something I have yet to hear an American administration say, and we've heard a lot. Let's play Kellyanne Conway and Chuck Todd, please.
The president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Alternative facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
Scott, you know, we've heard administrations lie to the American people. We went through the Iraq War situation where we were told that there were, you know, vials of botulinum and trucks that could explode, and that there were nuclear weapons in Iraq. So it's not that administrations don't lie, but to send a spokeswoman out or a senior advisor out to say we now have alternative facts.
She should resign. I mean, that's absurd. You I would assume that she's just not qualified for the position at this point, because you cannot say that there's alternative facts. It's going to lead to people dying. People are going to get killed over these lies because it's really exposing the fact that they don't live by facts. Alternative facts, it's a lie. That's the bottom line here.
Right.
It's a lie.
And we're going to talk in our next hour. We do our media block in the 11 o'clock hour about what the media needs to do about it. But, you know, Malcolm, they're lying in ways large and trivial. It's not just lying about big things, but it's lying about trivial things. The Smithsonian Institution, which people come to see as, it's a venerable institution in Washington, D.C., is right now selling a book at the National History Museum, a museum that is riddled with made-up falsehoods, fake things, alternative facts, as Kellyanne Conway would say, about Donald Trump's biography. You know, is this something that we should be laughing at and ridiculing, Malcolm, or is this something that should actually be concerning to the American people?
This should actually be concerning to the American people. No one should be laughing at this. And I'm afraid to say I'm getting very alarmed just over the last 48 hours. Okay, my world where I deal in is called ground truth, where we collect intelligence facts, we lay it out, it puts together a mosaic of a picture which gives you the actual broad truth as to what an opponent is doing. What I'm seeing here is a propaganda machine. This is straight out of the Russian playbook, the authoritarian playbook. If anyone in the U.S. intelligence community were to ever behave or speak in the way that this administration is doing, they would have their security clearance pulled immediately. They would be taken off of site. They wouldn't be allowed back. And we have names for these people: fabulist or pathological liars. And what I'm seeing here, Kellyanne Conway has lied right to my face. Okay? These people are out of touch with reality because they're creating an alternate reality that is a lie. And we have to be on guard for this because they're going to shove it in our face every time. And it will kill Americans. Absolutely.
And, you know, you talked about the intelligence community, Malcolm. I want to come to Naveed on this because the other bizarre thing that's happened in the last 24 hours is this trip to the CIA. And if we could just let's play video of Trump walking up to the podium in the CIA. Naveed, we don't know who was in that room. We don't know who was cheering. There's a pool report that suggests that the people who were cheering might have been Trump staff lined up on the wall. We know the senior leadership wasn't cheering. Do you have any insight into what happened in that room? Because Donald Trump just not long ago called those very same people Nazis.
You know, Joy, look, it's a somber place. This would be like complaining about parking at a wake. I don't know what to compare it to. It's completely bizarre to go on there and, you know, focus on time, the fact that you were on Time Life magazine, which, by the way, he claimed he was on it the most ever, which has proven to not be the case. It was just bizarre. And you know, look, Joy, you know, there's obviously a division here between the rank and file within the intelligence community who feel slighted, and they're concerned, and I think they have a right to be, and senior intelligence leadership. If nothing else, Donald Trump's speech yesterday did nothing to close the gap, to sort of heal. What we haven't seen is, you know, even with the protest yesterday, we haven't seen the president come out and said, look, I don't necessarily agree with you, but I hear you, which is essentially what we want from a leader. I mean, we can talk about the legality, but this man is also our leader. And the fact is that he's got to get out ahead of this and do that and lead. And when you have a speech like that yesterday in front of that wall, which is supposed to be a somber place, a place of reflection, that doesn't acknowledge that, it's frankly, it's disheartening and it's upsetting, I have to say.
Yeah, former
Joy,
CIA Director Brennan said that Trump should be ashamed of himself. Very quickly.
Yeah. I've been in that hall. I have placed my hand on the stars of my fallen friends. And let me tell you something. That room is approximately 25 feet deep. There's enough space there for maybe 3 rows of 20 people in that exact space of the hall. There's a T hallway off to the left, which is what he was complaining about with the columns, which is where all the guests and others there. The CIA officers who were in front were not applauding. There is an applause team off to the side. You even see them turn their heads to wonder who the hell is applauding in here. It is a disgrace that happened on that spot. It is despicable, and I am disgusted by the behavior of the Trump administration on what they did in that room.
Well, you echo Mr. Brennan, who is the outgoing CIA director, who said basically the same thing, that it was disgraceful. Trump didn't even reference what was behind him, which was an homage to people who've died in defense of their country. Stunning. Thank you. I wish we had more time. Scott Dworkin, Sarah Kendzior, Naveed Jamali, Malcolm Nance will have you all back. Thank you very much.